Oh, that looked like some kind of fraternity shit.
Oh, I think you want air. Did he just curse?
Welcome. Oh, what a day I'm having. I am having a bad day. I am having a bad, like what I said, day.
Oh, Jesus.
You find that funny, huh?
Hold on.
Tell me when you finish laughing.
Oh, Jesus.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, Mr. Fields.
First of all, I blame you for that. You saw that I was in the middle of a very heated...
You know that we start at 5:30.
I don't know, Jack.
Oh, who is this calling me?
No, that's someone now with the damn report.
No.
All right.
Okay, hold on.
You can hold on.
Hello.
You see what we're doing? Yeah. You see?
I'm on the air.
Yeah, she on the air. Uh-huh.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
That means now. That's what you mean. What do you have to, so after you tell them you're on the air, how much more? What else do they have to say after that?
It's a delay.
No, there ain't no delay. What they said after that?
No, because it was a delay. So it was like I on the air, then it was a do.
Okay.
Oh, shoot, I forgot.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, Christ. Oh, boy.
This is too funny.
I've had a terrible day. Terrible day. It completely, today, in one day, and it's continuing, essentially wiped out 10 days of serenity. Today. Just today. One day, yeah. I go to my office, positive attitude. I remember telling you my office was nicely clean, and, I go in there and there's a flood. And it's a flood of essentially feces and urine. Yeah. So then I say, okay.
That type of day, huh?
I said, no problem. I called the guys in. They came in the office. I said, now listen, here's how this is going to work. We're changing the carpet. We're not cleaning or blowing or buffing or shampooing. We're moving the carpet. I'm not living in any musty environment
and
from
when they
now.
come in the office, they can say,
yeah, what's that? Yeah, what that is? Yeah, it's gone. Here's the deal. Let me make it known to Atlantis and Atlanteans and everything. I'm suing if you don't move the carpet. I know they will, but I'm just making that very clear. Okay? So then I had other issues, other work, stuff. And then, of course, I couldn't literally work in my... So when I went into it was a slow trickle. When I went into my office, it looked fine. I saw the office next to me look bad, but I thought it was contained to that office. And I walked over by my file, and then when I walked back in, I noticed, it looked like a spot. Just like a spot. And I looked in the roof. I don't see nothing. Of course, I'm not even associating, And I thought, okay, well, anyway, stick it right up. It was just a little spot.
Oh.
So then I walked, and I said, I see a footprint.
Yeah.
I start here, and yeah, okay, but it was only to a certain point, and then it starts to just spread. Now it's there was settling water eventually.
What happened?
I don't know. I don't care. And so now, so I couldn't operate. Yeah, oh yeah. At first I didn't smell, but then I went in there. That smelled like. Can I say it on the radio?
Caca.
No, we don't say it in the Bahamas. We say nanny. It makes it bad. It gives it a different dimension. Because they have that sardine, corned beef type feel.
Yeah.
So anyway, then you have welcome back.
Yeah,
I couldn't work to my computer. Couldn't get things done. Fortunately, when I was away, and thank goodness for some reasons, these things, basically you can go on vacation because of these things, because you can keep up to date. So it just had me thrown out of sorts, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then, I come in here, and I'm discussing with you a subject of fraud, where an individual, and I'm not going to name his name, but I'm going to come as close to naming him as possible.
Okay.
Because, it's illegal to name the name. But I have the proof, so it doesn't matter.
But
I'm not going to name the name. No, I'm not going to name the name. But I'm going to do Punchian. I go in Punchian. It's a gentleman who wears a bow tie, who comes off as the greatest intellectual on the planet. So great, in fact. See, let me tell you something. Because don't worry, I'm going to get to you. And how you mess up my date to the end. Okay?
I do nothing to you.
No.
No.
With your little sumo wrestling thing. So anyway, this gentleman goes around and he's so smart. And see, the thing is about con men, right? You know who people who fall to con the most?
Gullible people.
Smart people.
Nope.
You know why? Because they don't want to be seen as being
smart.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not.
So
when you come in, and you say, well, you take the Smithsonian Acadian theory and philosophy and mix that in with the metaphysical sorts of Beckettish morphosis and come up with your stuff.
Yeah.
The people sitting in the audience,
they don't understand, but they
don't understand, so they can't go, well, so could you tell me what that means? No. Because then that means you're dumb in their mind.
So they're just going to go along with it.
They got to go along with
Nodding.
it. Yeah. I've had people tell me that. I've had people tell me that they never questioned this gentleman because they didn't want to sound fool.
I remember you told me.
Okay? And a very senior person told me that.
Yeah, I remember you told me.
So this individual was exposed.
As being a fraud.
As being certainly, let's put it this way, of misrepresenting himself. Okay?
As a fraud.
Right. He eventually had to depart the country, the Commonwealth, the COB, and then he perpetrated the same thing
in another jurisdiction.
In takes. Say I call it in the country. I go in, so it's just narrowing down. I ain't call no name, so don't tell me I call your name. In takes, okay, and it caught up with him there, okay, and then most recently he had to speak to something in Dominican Republic or something, some telecommunications thing. And some reporter picked up and go, this man is more interesting than the most interesting man in the world. You know your boy? Dos
Equis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's how it started, the article. I can find it.
You need to find that for
that
me.
article,
I'd love to read that.
And almost point by point, I thought almost point by point that I'd made in my submissions to other people.
That's
boom.
What the reporter
And,
did.
you go back, and I'm going to say, except for one guy, I'm not going to call names, one guy who stood up against this guy, everyone else tried to cover up for him. You know why? Because it exposed them. And all they had to do is say, listen, you're not part of this organization, boom, you're out. But instead, they even went so far as to allow him to change his resume. But what happened? Yeah. But what happened was, even when he did that, he still left some stuff on.
What do you mean change it to?
Well, like say, listen, to say, listen, clear this up. If you're not these things, just clear up your resume so that these things are not on your resume.
And he did?
And he did, except for one thing. Except for one or two things. And what happened was that then the person who was really kind of moving the process, through to make sure that this thing was cleaned up, he I suppose that you could say he insulted him by leaving this thing on, because he had also done some investigation and had found out that this guy, and I'll say it, he did not go to Oxford. Okay, so the person said, well, listen, man, you can't, and it was a big thing.
Yeah, it's a lot
of. Okay, now this person, and you know what? Let me tell you something. I retract the cursing that I gave you, because now this person.
You apologize for the cursing?
No, I'm not apologizing. You didn't apologize to me for telling me the first thing. This is a two-part thing.
Well, I did not curse you.
No. You belittled me.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did. The belittling is in the, what is it? Is in the eye of the belittlee. Not the belittler.
Without
taught me that.
Without without
intent.
Without without the knowledge that you subsequently gave me, I was correct.
But I thought I gave you that information.
No, I wasn't privy to that.
Okay.
So that's why I said. Remember when I said you and another gentleman were having a conversation? I know the audience is like, what are y'all talking about?
And we don't care about them.
Right?
We're talking me and you now. Because I don't case them on the welcoming.
I said all I was privy to was the conversation you had had with the gentleman. I figured nothing else was said about this individual.
Oh,
so I said you just as complicit as everybody else.
But I think I jogged your memory that I did speak to people. Did I not? Okay. But anyway, having said that, because me and you had a long conversation about that. No. We even. Let me tell you,
not.
Yes, we're even.
No,
First
I'm
of all,
the offended
let me
party,
tell you
so
what.
I tell you if we
well,
even or not.
I'm telling you that I was offended as well. You belittled me.
But you cursed me.
No, I asked permission, and you gave me the permission. You gave me permission. I asked her, I said, Ken, first I said, can you retract that statement, please? She says, no, I'm not retracting it. I said, well, then, can I have permission to case you?
How many times you asked me for that permission? 3 times.
It doesn't matter. You granted it.
So I said, you won't say it anyways. I said,
no,
go
you
ahead.
laughed. You
so
chuckled.
Go ahead.
You chuckled, and then you gave it to me. So then I gave you a nice case. Now, the reason I take it back is because when the person presented themselves here in the marketplace of the Bahamas, they then continue. What is it about? It's like I told you about my boy who worked with me and said he was a lawyer, and then he went to somewhere else, and then he come back to me with a blonde fro and asked me to give him a reference. Remember I told you that?
Yeah, I remember that story very well.
And I had to ask him, do you think you're under disguise?
I remember that story very well.
Okay.
So you explain that story.
So this gentleman has come back, and again, because he's reliant on the silence of, apathy. That or the silence that apathy brings. He's perpetuating himself again to be this thing. And by the way, the gentleman is not silly. He's smart. But it's like, why do you have to say, if you want to say philosophical, why do you have to come up with a whole new word that no one ever heard of that means philosophical when you're speaking to people? They don't know the word.
Well, you say big words that a lot of people don't know.
No, listen to me now.
You know words.
Listen to me.
Why should he bring?
Watch this now.
If he's well read and well
spoken, I'm getting ready to ask permission again. I'm getting ready to ask permission on your hip again.
Why should he bring it down himself?
Listen to me. Any word that Eddie has used is more or less maybe a big word, but it is not a word that no one has ever heard of in their life.
I'm sure
on the planet.
No.
Okay, this is planetary level word. I can show you some of the words. When I show you the words, you can come back.
It's all relative. It's because you don't know the words, and so when you
come back,
you little tight.
Hey, I tight. But when I come back with the dossier. You see the words, you can say, you know what, Fields?
I can be writing down all the words you say. Why we say, you sure your audience knows that? We got to take a break. We'll be back.
Take a break, before I finish up. Yeah, come in. Yeah. So
Ready?
Anyway, so here's the deal. What were we talking about? Rogan Smith?
Fraudsters and their ability.
Fraudsters,
yeah. Oh, you're listening, Nate.
Did you pick up on it? Okay, good.
Oh.
So anyway, you were good. That's the whole point. So I went to, so I'm gonna do an eking of an apology to you because simply what the deal is, and Bernice is not in on this, so I don't want to get her in trouble. Okay. The inkling of it because on the second time around, when he was out there, he's on radio shows and stuff like that. Now, mind you, the people whose shows he was on, I call them.
And you say,
I say, look, man,
you don't want to have this type of fellow on.
And see, there's a level of where you reach in life where you don't worry about if you really believe. You might be doing the wrong thing, but if you believe you're doing the right thing, you don't have any kind of qualms, reservations. You know what I'm saying? Because all the person has to say is, it's not true.
Yeah.
When the person appeared last on social media and was doing all this stuff, I had already by that time committed to being off of social media. But I felt compelled. So my only response was, because someone had said in response to the Dominican Republic thing, well, why doesn't so-and-so defend himself? And I said, or show his credentials. And I just simply came on, I can assure you that this gentleman will not be responding to any of this. Because that's the method. Just don't respond. And then to defend yourself by saying, I'm not responding to that garbage. You see? But when you have a person who is so, because, con people are smart people. They're in fact geniuses in many instances.
Are they smart, or are the people who are being conned just not that smart? Because at some point, people stepped in the front of us at some point in time, and there's something, they say your spidey senses go off. You'd be like, something is a little fishy about this person.
Yeah, but when I think they're smart in the sense that they know how to put something together to do what they want to accomplish, okay? A dummy can't just do that.
I think we have a lot of Bahamians who are just too easily impressed with credentials and somebody who speaks with a faux British accent. That's the problem.
Well, you also have situations like your boy with the Town Hotel. That's your greed factor. You remember the Town Hotel?
No.
Remember when the fellow was saying, come to the Town Hotel, bring your bills?
Bring the bills. Back in the day, I was younger.
Yeah.
I was way younger.
I just crossed my mind. You know, it's $75. You know, it's $75.
I must give you money. I
Huh?
must give you money to get my bills paid.
But a couple of people show
Why
their
don't
bills
I
paid.
just take that money and just go pay my bills?
No, but see, here's the deal. Here's the deal. Let's say you have, say, that's the reason why. Say $13,000 worth of bills. Let's say 13. I like 13, right? If you have $13,000 bills and you desperate and you have 75, you know what I'm saying?
No.
And some people saying to you, no, that's you. You got the bun. If some people say to you, okay, that's yeah. If some people say you have glasses, you have the bun. They can't fool with you, and you have them glasses with point to the sides. If you say the smart glasses, if you say to the average person, boy, I am really desperate situation. I got a couple of dollars. There's some people out there who say, Brian, this fella just paid my $8,000 bill. Or this person just paid my $4,000 bill.
That's how the scheme goes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he did. It's a Ponzi.
Yeah.
Okay? What is 75 to pay my 13? Even if I lose the 75.
But where's the critical thinking where you say, how is this going to work? Why would
hard work for them 3 people. That's hard work.
I mean, come on.
It ain't no come on. Them 3 people had the $8,000 paid. I can be one of them. Everyone else can get ripped off. That's the other thing. Everyone else is going to get ripped off except me. I can be one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, and how'd I work out for the rest of them?
They get ripped off. And they was on the line. It was a line.
I tell you, my listen,
I had a person I wasn't going to say who I know who said, I going down there.
Yes.
I could take my 75.
I was younger at the time. My mother and my aunt were like, they want to get their bills.
Yes,
I said, Mommy,
man.
what you doing? Come on.
So con men are smart in that they know human nature. Okay? They know human nature. They know that smart people will not ever admit that they were conned. Mm-hmm. Because... Yeah. Okay? They know this. You remember the guy, Leonardo DiCaprio was in a movie. What was it called? What is it called?
Catch Me If You
Can.
You got it.
Your boy was everything. Mm-hmm. Pilot, lawyer, doctor. He was the guy to colleges. Okay? In the hospital, man. Okay? So I just feel, and what is sad, and I'll tell you what is sad, and you're right on this, and you stated it at the beginning prior to us going on air, is that there are people who know this.
They're complicit.
They know it. And certainly, in my instance, I made people aware. And they still, go along with it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the...
When you made some... Because you on the break, you talked about the places that you notified about the situation. I mean, what was they just didn't want to get involved? I
don't know if it was an issue of, proof or evidence. But listen, you know my background, right?
Yeah.
I called universities. I called the gentleman who we had on the show, the other person who made aware of it. Yeah. When I first called him, he was involved in an organization. Mm-hmm. When I first called him to explain to him as a friend, you need to disassociate, right? He was extremely agitated because he thought this was some hatchet job. Mm-hmm. I said, look, man, you're my friend. I don't have to call you, but you could come over here and you could see what I did. So he actually got involved in some of the investigatory process himself with me. And that's why, to this day, he's one of my most trusted and best friends, because when he saw it, he went to the full extent to expose it. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah. So, we called universities, man. Mm-hmm. We called, office buildings where there's nothing existed. We had people go to those office buildings. We did a full thing, man. Mm-hmm. But you know how you can tell things. You're a reporter. When you look at a resume, right? Most resumes have a format. Mm-hmm. You list the school you went to. Let's say you start off from high school, and you might list X amount of BGCSEs. Then you'll have your college, and you say what you got a BA in. Then you say your master's in where you went to graduate school and which you got your MA in, where you went to do your PhD. This brother had like all the schools listed, about 18, and then another section with all the degrees, so you couldn't match it up.
Also, it wasn't like University of Georgia, master's degree.
It was like all the schools and then all the degrees.
Administration. Mm-hmm. So you match it up.
Match me if you can. Okay? But the one, and I got to say this on the air, okay? Because the one before, let me see how much time we got before the break. Couple minutes, so we can talk some more about this. But the one that catch me hardcore. So when I got this resume, because listen, I was actually a very big supporter of this individual because he sounded good. Good.
He sounded good.
Sounded good, man. Sounded objective. Sounded good.
Wow.
Okay. So I said when we were looking at some committee, I said, you should get this person on your committee. He really sounds, that's what I said. I'd never met him. He really sounds good. He's obviously educated. Mm-hmm. So they said, no, man. Someone just threw out there, man. He's a fraud. I said, well, no, you can't just say that. Mm-hmm. So something went on, and I said, well, listen, don't just say it. Why don't give me the resume? So somehow I managed to get this resume. Now, I got the resume, but I wasn't really focused on doing this investigation, so to speak, right? But I took a look at it. Now, Roganne Smith comes from an investigative reporter background, so she knows certain things pop out and all that. So when you read it, you figure now, I got to dig through this. I got to look at every item, and maybe I might find something. You never, ever are gifted, let me use the word gifted, with the first line popping out at you. And the first line of this resume said, and I quote, that he had attended the Hawksbill School of Engineering Science. Now, once again, you temper your enthusiasm, your excitement. You temper your excitement because you say, listen, I'm from Freeport.
Let me check.
I don't know what they got.
Hey.
Okay? So you check yourself, Roganne Smith. You check yourself. See, in this process, you must check yourself. You must measure yourself so that you don't go off on a deep end and yell, well, I ain't no Hawksbill School of Engineering Science. You're not from Freeport. How you know that? They might have an Andrew School of Engineering Science. You don't know. Okay? So I then called several Freeportians. Some high-placed Freeportians.
Yeah.
I said, man, listen, I'm looking at something here. Listen, is there a Hawksbill School of Engineering Science in Freeport? Man, that's Hawksbill High, man. Only Hawksbill High.
No School of Engineering.
And then, once I heard that, that's it. Mm-hmm. Things like Carmelite monk.
What the heck? What?
Now, this is the one I love, and this can really kind of expose it.
Carmelite
monk, yeah. This is the one I like. They were the special advisor to the House of Myrtle Charities, Freeport, Grand Bahama.
Special advisor to the
Special
House
advisor
of Myrtle
or legal
Charities.
counsel or something, okay? So I said to myself, well, I got to check this
House
one out.
of Myrtle.
Come to find out, my mother named Myrtle, and she have a daycare or something like that.
So when the mummy say, ask a question, he advised her, and that's how he became the special advisor. Or as we say, advisor.
Listen, it became, I got obsessed. Oh my God. All kind of things, man. Yes, no. But first of all, in them days, this is way the days before you're on the internet, right? So you Google House of Myrtle, nothing come up.
Hey.
Yeah. My mother name Myrtle.
What's your mommy name?
Myrtle.
What's your mommy
Althea.
Althea?
Althea.
Althea.
It's Althea, but in the bars we say Althea.
Well, that's special advisor.
To the House of Althea Advisory.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah, it just went on and on and on and on and on, man.
This is sad, but it's funny.
It is funny.
It's funny, right?
And then, so when I see this chap.
This is going to make a good movie.
Oh.
I'm going to write it.
When I see this chap, I just say to myself, please. See, the sad, and I'll tell you the sad part about it. And you notice how in Catch Him If You Can, you notice what they used him for.
Oh, my goodness.
You remember the movie. After he served his time, and I'm not saying this individual has ever done anything criminal that I'm talking about, other than just, misrepresent. When after this fellow served his time, he became a major resource for the FBI. Because he was so adept at what he did, he could catch other people. Mm-hmm. This individual, by the way, and I say this very candidly, in my view, has something to perhaps offer. But you see, the problem is how do you trust anything? Yeah. See, when you're saying to me, well, the circumvicular of the counts, I don't know what that is. It might be real, but it might just be something invented. Okay? Because no one else, I'm telling you, speaks like that.
No one's going to question it.
Okay? You're the only one in that silo who speaks like that. Mm-hmm. So Vernice, who's a big time CEO, she can sit up in a meeting. Oh yes, the circumvicular thing. Yeah, it's a big thing. And then she can go out and she can repeat it. She go, the other day I was talking to someone and I realized that the circumvicular. And then the next person can feel bad.
Yeah, because they don't know, and it's a cycle.
No. If you know me, you know that's not true.
Let me tell you how dread this person is. Even you can say it. Let me tell you something. I know a guy. I know a guy. Yeah, I know a guy. I know a guy, right? Who is a very senior guy, very smart guy. And he told me, I said to him, listen, man, when y'all was sitting there, why y'all in question? He said, man, I didn't want to look stupid. So that's my little tirade. But we're gonna wrap up and we're gonna have Bernice. But I just can't take it anymore, man. I just cannot take it anymore. So we'll be back. Our special guest this afternoon is she's a big fraudster. Bernice, she can tell. I know whatever she tells us, I can understand. Is Vernice Walkin, who I can assure you is the complete opposite of that. And we'll talk about what's happening at NAD, what's happening in our skies, and what's happening in terms of growth and tourism. We'll be right back. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it. Yes, you can do that. We insist that our guests fix their own mic. God. It's kind of good to be back, despite having the horrific day that I've had. So our special guest this afternoon is Vernice Walkin, and everyone knows Vernice. She is I suppose, industry veteran. Yeah. I think that's But let me ask you a question. Were you ever a Carmelite nun?
Well, I didn't see this coming with just silly self.
No, but I like caramel. Does that count?
No. Okay. So Vernice now, is former Director General of Tourism, so everyone knows in that capacity. And I think you've been on our show before. I think I had the distinct pleasure of telling folks that, when I was on the board of the Nassau Airport Development Company, that Vernice came on as CEO. Were you CEO first?
No.
Would you come on marketing? Oh. Well, you rose quickly.
I did.
Mm-hmm. I came on and sales marketing. I rise no further than it. So it's probably that Carmelite background that pushed you up. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that.
But she's now the CEO down at NAD. And listen, one of the things Bahamians have a unique lack of appreciation for things, right? I.e., literally prior to 2012 was the first opening?
Was the first opening.
Okay, 2011, right. You could not go a day without complaints about the airport. Specifically, the bathrooms. Second, specifically, the baggage belts. All sorts of things. Just a whole, and it was just a mess. The security, everything. How much we have here? Take 10? Because that's my number.
Quite a few.
If you got through on a plane with anything, you need to be one of these people we talking about because you were dread.
That's true.
So now we see Vernice, the airport, as a beacon, really. And just to remind us, what is the ranking in the region or the Caribbean of our airport?
Well, we have ranked as high as third, but we've had a number of new entrants since we joined the Airport Service Quality Survey. So you have airports in parts of Central America that are emerging because they're redeveloping their airports as well. Yeah. And they have a significant throughput of passengers. So, you have a propensity for them to push in and sometimes they disappear and then they reappear. We don't want to be in that region. No, I know, but we're part of the Latin American and Caribbean region.
They always do that to us.
Yeah, so we are right now sitting at about 7th. Out of a total of 33 in the Caribbean region.
And these are close things, too.
It's very close.
It's not like, one. Yeah, it's
like
close.
It could be Number one is in Honduras, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's because no one goes there. No one knows how the airport look.
Well,
I'm only saying that. I can say that stuff. I'm saying that. I mean, when's the last? Who's the last place you've been to Honduras?
Well, I'll tell you. The newest entrants, though, are the Mexican and Dominican Republic.
Have you been with that?
I know.
No, come on now. Yeah. We can't be with Mexico.
So I'm just saying that we're
we might as well be in America.
Well, but some of them are significant in terms of size.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a fair comparison. But when you look at airports in our size category, which would be 4 million passengers or under, then we do considerably better.
Okay.
Third, fourth, or fifth.
We ain't in the last. That's the bottom line.
No,
like
never.
We are in a lot of other things.
Never.
Okay.
No, we used to be last. Even before we surveyed. We didn't need anybody to tell us we were last.
They didn't even, it was like unclassified. You used to get that in school?
Yes.
We ain't bothering.
Right.
What do they use to rank it? I mean, like, what are they looking at?
Oh, there are a number of factors. People who are passengers or users will rank you on the basis of their experience at check-in, their experience going through security, their experience with your food and beverage outlets, if they thought they met their needs or didn't meet their needs, the condition of the bathrooms.
Which is always pretty good. I travel a lot, and I got to give you
We're very proud of it because, believe it or not, the number one determinant of how people feel about your airport is the condition of the bathrooms.
We used to have a welcome to the Bahamas
it was special. It was special.
They're tall. That's awful sponsor.
Yeah, it was special. Trust me, before I joined that, I was the biggest complainer about the airport, right?
Because escalator and boom.
Because I traveled so much through it, right? So I experienced it up close and personal. It never occurred to me that I would then become the person to whom people would complain about the airport.
Now,
right?
when you look at, you've traveled to Fort Lauderdale, you travel to these places. Far better.
Ours is way better.
Yeah.
Put us in Fort Lauderdale. Let us compete with them.
It's true.
They do a fantastic job.
It's true.
No, so I remember all the days with the cafe in the clouds and all this kind of thing, But anyway, now before we get into some other stuff, I noticed, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see it because you know how it is.
What are you going to talk about, Ed? The demolition of the old terminal?
See, let me tell you why, right?
Okay.
Well, first of all, Vernice knows I'm one of these people.
Yes,
I'm an emailer.
Yes.
So on the spot emailing, right? So when we were discussing it back then about what would happen then and all that, it seemed like it was, it's one of those things that, it's just going to get put off and put off and put off, right? And every day you pull into the airport, the one negative thing, the one incompleteness is that area in terms of the paving and the building and all that. But then I was so thrilled to see a green fence around it. So, but I was a little skeptical, say maybe they're just trying to hide it. Okay.
No.
And then I saw the thing in the paper with the demolition.
It's going to take 10 weeks. We're actually in the third week already. But, it was projected to take 10 weeks. It's likely to take less than that. Okay. It's moving along and it's been helped by the fact that we have had no bad weather or any of that. So probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks we may be done. Okay. So then the next step will be for us to make sure it's completely flattened. We're going to landscape it. Okay. And we're going to reserve that particular property for future domestic terminal.
Okay. So it'll be a pleasant landscape environment. Was there any consideration? I didn't know. You always have these buffs that with the tower and stuff like historical.
Yes.
That kind of thing to preserve it.
Well, we documented them all.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, we got a request from the Antiquities Monuments and Museums Corporation that they wanted to have a photographer come down and document those premises because of what it meant to the country, right? And so a couple of the significant pieces are being kept and preserved, and will reappear in a future time.
Let me tell you, when I knew how bad the old airport was. First of all, as a kid in our generation, I don't know if Rogan would remember this. Going to the airport was a big deal.
It was a treat.
Okay. See, like no one now, you ask someone to take you to the airport, no one interested in taking you to the airport now.
Yeah.
Okay. to go to the airport to take someone off who going away was like
a big deal.
Big deal.
Yeah, whole family
and you go and you stand on the observation deck and you wave. You can't see nothing. They in a little plane, a little hole. You can't see nothing on the BOAC plane,
right?
But you're waving.
Or the Eastern Airlines.
The Eastern Airlines.
Or the Pan Am.
Yeah. And the thing is, let me tell you when you know you're poor, man. You know, they had on that observation deck, they had the door to that restaurant. We could never afford to go in that restaurant.
Really?
No.
Oh.
I never got to go in that restaurant. Remember the restaurant, Ken?
You know what we used to do, Ed? Then you would leave the airport and go to Howard Johnson's and get ice cream.
There you go.
So that was compensation, yeah.
And that has a whole series of bad memories for me that I'll tell you off the air. The Howard Johnson
thing.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. But I knew it was in bad shape because when there was some stairs there that took you to civil aviation, and I think as a reporter or something I had to go to this place, and the stairs were like that. It was the wooden stairs and they were bowed in, and I was just like, wow. You know, this is how old this thing is. The stairs were actually bowed. I'd never seen stairs like that. Ever. You know the stairs I'm talking about?
I do, yeah.
You never had a reason to go. Most people never had a reason to go up there, but that's where the civil aviation people were. So that's gone. Yep. So what about repaving the, I can ask all the questions now. Repaving the approach area and all that type of stuff.
Absolutely.
It's going to be up to my standard?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
I promise. And if it isn't, I know you will email me.
Is there any...
By the way, the only weddings in the world that have a drive-through at the airport.
This is true. That is true.
It's always beautiful when you're flying into New Providence. The water's always gorgeous. You see, the land. But I always wondered why outside of the airport, like inside the airport facility, but it just is not as colorful as I would think, or, as landscaped as I would like for it to be. Because, it's such a source of pride, the airport itself. It's so beautiful, but the area, like right when the plane is touching down, is just not. You mean on that appealing.
The aprons around the sidewalk. Not sidewalk, the runways and stuff.
Right. Is there any plan to do anything with? Sometimes when you go to different countries and you're touching down, there's like the feather banners or something is out there. I don't know what it is, but something that's colorful.
You can't do that on the inside.
It's something.
But you see more grassing and stuff like that.
We will be doing more of. I guess you can't put too many. Devices that because they could be an obstruction or can become forward in bad weather. Then you have to go get somebody, take them all down if a storm's coming or something like that. But in terms of grass and whatnot, landscaping, we could do a much better job. And I'll tell you, one of the things we're going to be doing starting the middle of June is resurfacing of one of our 2 runways. Yeah. That's a major project. Yeah. It's something that we've been wanting to do for a while now. We're now in a position to do it. We just identified the contractor, and so those conversations have just started this week. But starting around June 17th, I think, the work will begin in earnest. So we'll be down to 1 runway, which most airports have 1 runway, but we've had 2. But we're going to, at the end of that process, which is going to take us between 4 and 6 months, we will be putting down some grass to surround the new runway. Yeah, I should also tell you an interesting thing I learned is that runway 09, which is the one we're going to be resurfacing, 0927, is going to become runway 1028. Because apparently, Ed, now see, this is where your friend would have found the right words to communicate this to you. But apparently, the Earth has shifted on its axis. Oh. And as a result, the direction in which this runway actually lays is going to be 1028 as opposed to 927.
That's the degree longitude or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's called longitudinal azimuth. We don't know that in the aviation
No, it is interesting, isn't it? So once we've done the resurfacing, we will put down the new markers, and so you'll see 1028 instead of 927.
I just thought they were random numbers.
No. This whole thing makes perfect sense to somebody who understands.
Are we going to get to the point where we need to put down a parallel runway? Do you have space for it? It's a big undertaking, right?
Yes. So
how much a runway costs?
A lot. You know what a lot looks like?
What is that, millions?
Like a gajillion.
Like 20 million?
Like a gajillion.
More than 20 million or less than 50 million?
Well, listen, the resurfacing that we're going to be doing that I just mentioned is going to cost us just about $20 million. That's just a resurfacing. So if you're talking about a parallel runway, which has to be with all the infrastructure put in for the first time on virgin land, so to speak.
And because you have to have a base for the land as planned.
You can easily double and a half
you
that.
Could get up to,
no, seriously, it's serious money.
Yeah.
So I think, though, that the Airside Master Plan calls for a future parallel runway. Now, your question to me might be, well, when is the future? I don't know. Yeah. Probably, 10, 12 years at best. But having said that, we did not have the land to do a future parallel runway. We now do.
You acquired some land.
We have gotten the approval of the government to acquire the additional land to allow us to do that and to protect the airport, so that you may have noticed as you drive by, we want to avoid encroachment.
You
don't want people building things around the airport that then prevent
safety
us from expanding as we need
and
to.
Safety.
When I'm on the beach in Exuma, somebody else is going to have to worry about how the airport grows, right? So we
where we can be in Exuma?
On the beach.
And when?
In a few years.
All right.
Before the parallel runway.
Make sure don't leave me now, because hey, don't leave me, man. Don't leave me, please. Okay.
Email me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You ain't gonna have no email. We can take a break. We'll be right back. So, Vernice, you see why I'm tainted. I'm damaged. That's the word I want to use. By Howard Johnson.
Yeah, you have issues.
All right. I have issues, man. I got plenty of issues. Listen. First of all, let me just say this. As far as I'm concerned, you're doing a wonderful job. The other day I went into the airport, and, I went into the bathroom. There was water on the floor, and I couldn't figure it out. So I went into a cubicle, and some nut, this is in the men's bathroom, don't really clear, some nut had taken a disposable diaper and put it in the toilet.
Ooh.
I mean, the only silver lining of that is, from the engineering perspective, all they do is remove the diaper. I didn't touch it. But I'm saying, why would they think this?
That's the place to dispose of it. Wow.
And so it clogged up the toilet, and it overflowed.
Idiots like that.
So I had to call. Yeah. I went over. I didn't see anyone at the time, space cleaning. So I went to secure, and I said, "Excuse me, sir." Blah, blah, blah. And he said, "Oh, I'll get." And he started. And then later on, he said, "Listen," and he went in, and so there was people were moving. It's the kind of response you want to see. People being just responsive.
Right.
So kudos to you.
Yeah, how are things shaping up? Because we're going into the summer months now. I mean, do you have an estimate as to how many passengers you think will be coming through during these summer months?
Well, if the past is any indicator of the future, we have had almost double-digit growth each month since last September.
Crazy.
It's unbelievable, quite frankly. I mean, no, it's a really nice problem, because what we've had to do as a result is to put together a whole new set of standard operating procedures, which really require all of the stakeholders at the airport to put on additional staff and do some additional things in order to manage these higher numbers coming through. But it's a great opportunity for us, because what we're doing is we're responding by making available some more amenities for people. We're looking at additional food and beverage concessions and retail and so on, which I'll talk about in a moment if Ed allows me. But anyone?
No, man.
But to answer your question about this summer, the projections for this summer are extremely strong, by all indications, and you can always tell because the airlines respond to the demand. If there's no demand, they're not going to add additional capacity, right? So when you
build it, you will come thing for
gone are those days, because they're all struggling to find enough equipment, particularly at the moment with this Boeing 737 Supermax thing, whatever.
None of them coming in yet. Any of them coming this way?
What's that?
The Supermax?
No.
Okay.
No. Boeing has some issues right now because they can't seem to get past this issue with this Supermax. But in any event, the airlines have indicated to us that their capacity this summer is extremely strong, and so much so that even in the month of September, when ordinarily you would see them retrenching, you would see capacity being pulled back. We have United that is keeping its service out of Newark every day. Chicago is being maintained. Dallas is being maintained. I mean, and these are services that would ordinarily cut back to maybe 3 days a week or once a week on like a Saturday only service. So there's significant demand out there, and I have to give credit for that to all of the stakeholders who have spent a lot of money Whether it's the Ministry of Tourism with their new campaign, it's Bahama, it's Atlantis, it's Sandals, the NASA Partisan Promotion Board that just came back onto TV again. They're spending a lot of money to stimulate sufficient demand out there, and the airlines have responded. So we are extremely optimistic about this summer. July and August tend to be our peak months, not just for arrivals, but also Bahamians traveling, and all of that. So we're gearing up for a very busy summer.
This is good.
I know you can't build, someone always told me you can't build a church just for Christmas. But when you look at the consistency of demand that we're having, like the other day I went through the airport, and, the bottom line is it went smooth, because 3 security stations were open. Of course,
they sometimes
now
go up to 5.
You now have the biometrics or whatever that is, not biometrics, but
the APC, automated passport control.
Control stuff.
We will be going to biometrics.
By the way,
you
all have any role in getting in that global entry thing?
Yes, and one of the things we are working on is pre-check. So
TSA pre-check.
TSA pre-check. Yeah. That's one of the things that's being worked on even as we speak.
Or business class.
That'll happen
things
before
like
the end of this year for sure.
No, the overall experience, the question I ask is that, if we can keep our act, the way it is, the kind of growth capacity that you could possibly see, and I know that it was planned for way in advance, when do you start saying, going back to my church analogy again, when do you start saying we're going to expand based on projections? Because, anything can happen in this world, right?
Well, there's
it can be up and down.
Yeah, there's expand and there's expand, right? In terms of the actual footprint, one of the things that mitigates against us spending a whole lot more money to expand our footprint, per se, would be the fact that technology is so efficient now in terms of moving people through terminals and other facilities and what have you, that the time that they need to be in that facility is reduced. And so I can foresee a time when people can literally show up 45 minutes before their flight departs because the only thing they need to worry about is getting through security, and even that will be biometrically driven, right? So if you are able to, from check-in straight through to, security screening, just continue going, because the technology is there to do the 3D view of your your carry-on bag. The machine is there to take a photo of your face and go through the process and identify who you are, so you are considered safe. And you can continue right on through till you get on the plane. So, I just attended a conference in Chicago about 2 weeks ago where that was a heavy topic, because a lot of American airports in particular are in dire need of redevelopment.
Oh, yeah.
So the question for them is, how do we redevelop? Do we build big terminals, or do we consider ourselves as on the cusp of this current trend toward more technology to move people through?
And then
so
how does that affect things?
Right.
But then you got the other side of that. How does it affect things like retail? Because you got major retail, so if people don't have time, if they're coming through, it's just flowing through.
Correct.
That affects your
so
retail
what
footprint.
The discussion was more and more delivery. So, for example, if I pre-order, like I know I want to take my meal on the plane, I can, through an app, I can pre-order my food from Wendy's or from, this pizza place or whatever it is, and they will deliver it to me at the plane. Yeah. So I can take it with me.
Like
and
that.
the same with other retail commercial undertaking. So if I want to buy some Airborne or 6 bottles of juice
or even the liquor,
or some perfume, I can pre-order it and have it delivered to me at the aircraft.
But what I also see, Vernice, as an opportunity, because most airports have the space, right? So it's you don't want a lot of empty space. So I also see the possibility of how do you make yourself kind of, and I hate it sounds like an entertainment center, so that I want to go early, not because I'm hassled at the thing, but because there's something there for me to do.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like bowling or something, some way outlandish thing, right?
There are airports that have gotten very smart about this. And the one example that everybody looks to is the one in Singapore. Changi Airport.
They got Singapore.
They
got
have the most amazing experiences for people.
Yeah.
Whether it's a waterfall in the middle of the terminal where you can engage with birds. They have created like almost a rainforest.
It's an experience, yeah.
I mean, if you Google Changi Airport, they just open a new terminal with a waterfall in the middle of the terminal.
Yeah. No,
so there are those airports that are moving towards these experiences, and this is all pre-security. So I can live in Singapore and come to the airport to have this experience, right? So that's one model that a number of airports are considering.
You know, and the reason I bring that up is because if you go to Trinidad Airport, which is at least it was a very old airport back then, they had an interesting setup where they had a lot of food and beverage in the departure side on the outside. So people just came there to hang out.
Yeah, exactly. I remember that too. I've been to Trinidad.
You just go and sit. It wasn't interfering with the operations at all. You could go and buy records. You could go and have dinner. You could have all on the outside, of course. But so I think there's an opportunity because once you have the space, it's not like you're going to just let it go.
No. But to your point, though, about, expansion of our footprint and whatnot, I don't think that there's going to be an immediate need for us to expand our footprint. However, we have redesigned some of our public spaces. So, for example, we are putting in more hold room seating, right? Because our passenger numbers in the hold rooms.
Oh, you mean
where you sit by the gate?
Okay.
We're putting in more seating in the food court. So we're redesigning these spaces to accommodate more people.
They're crowded, man.
Yeah, they're very crowded.
You know what's amazing? When they showed the models, the renderings, every time I go into that airport, I go, it looks exactly like how the rendering pictured it.
Yeah, it was delivered,
like people moving around.
It's amazing. And so people enjoy our terminals. And so one of the things we're doing is we are going to be opening in July a walk-through duty-free experience like you see in a lot of airports,
right?
Where you are walking through the store.
Right.
So once you leave the food court or whatever,
it just flows in.
You just flow right through this amazing walk-through duty-free experience. So that's going to be helpful because one of the things that surveys told us is that we didn't have enough of those duty-free products that people expect to find in airports. In a lot of jurisdictions, the challenge for us in the Bahamas is that visitors in particular, have access to duty-free shopping all over the place here. They can go downtown. They have it in their hotels, Atlantis, Bahama, and so on. There are not a lot of places that provide that kind of shopping experience, right? So I can use, for example, our friendly competitor, Montego Bay. So you can go duty-free shopping in downtown Montego Bay. So they have a lot more duty-free shopping at the airport. So people take advantage of that.
Well.
So there's an expectation that there will be more duty-free shopping at our airport. So people who decline to shop downtown because they want to be on the beach, they expect
opportunity.
Right. So now we will provide that for them starting July.
I'm looking forward to a lot more experiences in our airport too. I mean, like I said, I travel a lot, and I always like, for example, if my flight is delayed, I mean, that could be a hassle, but there's always like a salon I can go in, get spa treatments, and I see that they have a mini spa area inside the airport. That's helpful, but those experiences will just make the whole travel experience more pleasant.
Yeah, no, we're looking
travel has become more and more of a hassle.
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
And so
but it's kind of reversing with that flow through.
It is. Yeah. We're taking away all of the choke points so that people don't mind the experience, and then the next time they're like, I actually can look forward to getting through there because I want to go to that store upstairs. I want to eat in that restaurant. So we're trying some interesting things. So, for example, we have a sushi rokan.
Oh, nice.
Right? That was in a spot that was doing fairly well. We decided we would test it, and we put it was kind of like a pop-up store right next to the Tortuga kiosk, and they were doing pretty good. We was pleased at how well it was doing there, but we realized that we couldn't continue to leave it there because they needed more space, and we wanted it to become more part of the food court. So we put it in the food court. They have doubled their sales.
You see that?
So, because everybody can now see it, and, and so on. But one of the things that was of interest to me when I was at this conference in Chicago is a discussion around millennials. Millennials are the largest, the fastest growing segment of travelers, right?
Yep.
And so what is it that millennials want in our airports. And I can tell you that we have more millennials coming to this destination because you can see it. These are the people who are largely staying at the Cove and at the SLS, right? And so as an airport, how do we give them what they're looking for? First of all, they're very impatient. They don't want to line up for anything. And they want to have their choices available when they want their choices available. They have to have Wi-Fi, and it has to be good Wi-Fi, and all these. You have to have charging stations. So we are addressing a lot of these things because it's not just important to millennials. It's important to those who are slightly older than millennials as well, who, you have all these devices and you need to stay connected and what have you, right? But we're looking at technology to help us to move people through faster, and U.S. CBP, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, are working with us to try to get the biometrics here as quickly as possible. It's being piloted right now in Aruba. And once that pilot is, it's been fully tested and what have you, we would expect that sometime.
Both Payments and visitors be available?
Yeah, everybody. Just like you use the ABC kiosk now, you would be able to use the biometric device. It's a camera essentially that would capture your image.
I went through that.
And it goes through the database
like the clear thing,
to clear you,
and
that's it for you. You don't have to do anything else. The other end of it is to have the biometrics at the gates. So the airlines will then have to invest in that so that people can just go through the machine, the camera, and get on board.
Let me ask you.
Can I ask a question real quick before we go on? Speaking of the tech upgrades, is there any plan? Are there any plans to upgrade? What do you call the thing when you go through in security, when you're doing the security check? Because I know, like in the States, they have the body scans. They have the ones like that.
Yes,
they're going to be doing those.
Right?
Yes, those are mandatory.
The TSA has a standard. We meet the standard, but their standard evolves, right? And so we are moving towards the sort of the next generation of that equipment. And so the airport authority is looking to acquire those walk-through body scanners, right? Because that would speed up things as well, quite considerably. Cool. But also the pre-check would be helpful because a number of people who qualify for pre-check, they need their own dedicated line, and so that's something that's being developed as we speak. So we're trying to. You don't have to take off your shoes. You don't have to take your laptop out. Any of that.
Now, before I get another question, I want to ask you. Let me ask you about the Family Islands. Now, I know that the Family Islands. We got a break. We'll take a break. We'll be back. I want to ask you a couple of questions there. Yeah. So we're here with Vernice Walkeen, who is the CEO. Is it the CEO or the president? What are you?
Both.
Okay, CEO and president and managing director.
No.
Okay, and principal of the NAD the Hawksville School of. She got her degree at the Hawksville School of Engineering Science. Vernice, one of the things I noticed when I was in South Africa, you talk about sense of place and airports, and that's one of the first things I learned when we were in that exercise, is sense of place. That when you go to, there's obviously a lot of outside of the main city travel, to safaris, et cetera, et cetera. And when you land in the airports, just simple airports. I mean, they've got, you got to get off the plane and walk, there's no jetways and all that stuff. And very simple buildings, but, just representative of that place, wood, a lot of wood. Yeah, you're in Africa, and you go to our airports in the Family Islands, and they're challenged, they're not, So the question is there any possible opportunities that NAD could be involved with in the managing of some of those facilities? Has that ever come up?
That is possible.
Okay.
That is very possible. We have been asked to consider operating some of these Family Island airports, and those discussions are actually very active at the moment. Right.
Because, and I know that, and by the way, to clear up, I think this is very important. Vantage, which is the company you work with,
that I work for,
which you formerly YVRS, they don't own the airport.
No,
the airport is an asset of the
government,
the people of the Bahamas.
That's
right. You just manage it.
That's correct.
So when you have these discussions with regard to Family Island airports, this isn't an issue of owning the airport.
Absolutely
just a matter of managing. And I was watching the budget debate the other day, and maybe this kind of applies to it, where the government said basically we've got to get out of the SOE business.
That's right.
Okay, the government cannot be operating state-owned enterprises, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government can't be in the business of this. There are people who are in the business of that. That's why the airport, and I'm going to be very candid, didn't work before.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was operated by people who did, with the resources they had and with the knowledge they had, simply was not in the business of, don't ask me to be no seamstress. Mm-hmm. Okay? So it only makes sense. And then the economies, right? The scale in terms of your management and arranging, what do you call it? With the planes coming in and out and going to different destinations, etc. So that's good to know. Now, what about the hailed airport hotel? You're not putting it on my spot anymore because you're using that now for future growth. Mm-hmm. Are we still talking about air hotel?
Absolutely.
The submissions, the deadline was last Friday.
These things. That's what she here for.
Yeah.
You think I got a airport hotelier emporium exec rate? No. Okay.
No, we put out an RFP, and we're
But they put out RFPs before, though, right?
No.
Okay.
No. And so we're waiting for those proposals to come in, and we will evaluate them and consider who has the best plan for an airport hotel that is commensurate with the traffic we get.
It ain't too late for me to put one in.
It is kind of late.
Okay.
I thought the deadline was last Friday. For submissions. No.
Yeah.
No, I think it's June 14th or something like that.
We do some we can do some on the aircraft. Me and you talk later. Now. No, listen. No. So have we identified a location, or is that undercover?
No, we have identified a location.
It's,
the location.
for public.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was part of the RFP. Yes.
Okay.
So the location is, if you can picture at the exit booth from the international parking lot.
They have them double signs. I emailed that about you before.
What?
The two sides. The two sides. One that blocking. There's one side blocking the next side. Okay.
So you know that vacant property that we used to use during construction for overflow parking?
Yeah.
It's fenced in.
Yeah.
That's the site of the airport hotel. That's right. The gravel lots.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that was determined to be the best location because the site of the old terminal would have been challenging for an airport hotel because it would have added so much congestion to the traffic, with traffic coming to the domestic international terminal. It would only have added to all of that congestion. So we determined, and it's still within walking distance. And we believe that it would be easier for people to access the hotel from the main road and all of that.
I try to figure out if there's a demand, right? I mean, this was the big issue because because we don't have a lot of late night flights and connecting flights to other. I mean, is that a family island thing? Is that a international thing? Is that, do we
all
have
of
a
the
lot?
above?
Okay.
Because you would be surprised at how many people are required to find accommodations because flights get canceled. Flights are delayed coming in, so they miss their people miss their connections going out, and so on and so forth. You'll be surprised,
and,
as well as airline crew. And so we are of the view that the degree to which an airport hotel is so convenient, it's on the airport property.
Trust me.
You would find more. So, for example, American used to overnight, a couple of their planes. They don't do that so much anymore. There's decisions that they could reconsider because of the convenience now, right? And so, but again, flights get canceled a lot because of all kinds of reasons, mechanicals, weather, all kinds of things. And so these people have to be, sent to the nearest hotel. Where is that? So there's the cost for transportation and all the rest of it, right? And so and the rates. And so this is not going to be a luxury hotel. We are not fooling ourselves into thinking we're going to suck business from anybody. That's not our intent. We're really it's a nice dorm.
Yeah.
It's a really nice dorm at a very nice university. Yes, it will have a lovely restaurant. Yeah. It will have some amenities, gym and those kinds of things. But it will be a nice 3-star hotel, right? Yeah.
Because
most people will only be spending one night.
I'm a fan. Listen, I'm a fan of airport hotels. They used to be crappy. I don't know if you remember that one in Miami.
It's still crappy.
It's still crappy. But I'm the kind of fella. If I got a 4-hour, 5-hour wait, man, I go to the hotel, man. I gotta go lay down.
Yeah.
But no, they're very convenient when it comes to dropping off car rentals and these type of things on your way in. But again, I'm just trying to figure. Mine was like if I had to drive long distances from where I was. It was more convenient for me to stay at the airport hotel on that last night.
Right. Yeah.
Drive in that night.
That's correct.
Turn in the car.
That's correct.
And then get in.
That's right.
Next one, you just,
That's right.
But I don't know if we have that problem.
Yeah.
Because of we do? Okay. All right.
You'll be amazed at how many people talk to us every day.
Okay.
When is this hotel coming?
How many rooms? Like 100?
120. 120. We estimate, but we're waiting for the proponents to tell us what they think is the most viable and feasible, because again, that's not the business we're in. We're not hotel developers, so we would expect the developer to have considered what makes sense and what price point. So and then based on the price point, what brand makes sense. Right. Is it a Hyatt, a Hilton Garden Inn or a Hyatt place or whatever makes sense. So we're excited to see what kind of response we get.
I like the bistro. The bistro burger. The bistro burger is very good.
Not the crispy chicken like Howard Johnson.
Oh Lord, the crispy chicken. Listen. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on, but if you had to, encapsulate, are there any more developments plans that you would like the people to know, the public to know, in terms of what's happening at the airport, or have we covered it all?
Well, I think we just want the public to know that we continue to look for ways to make the whole experience better. It sounds a little bit corny, but it's true, right? Yeah. It's important for us to make sure that people can find their way easily through the term. They know where to find what they're looking for, hassle-free, easy to maneuver. They can find what they want. They can be comfortable where they are. So, seating and placement of seating and additional concessions. We're going to do more pop-up stores, so on a seasonal basis. You can add some additional things that people can avail themselves of. We're looking at a number of interesting things, which I'm not at liberty to share on the air just yet. But
tell us after the show.
I can tell you off the air. But some really fun stuff that I think that the public will appreciate. And again, the Bahamian public have been very, very supportive generally of what's happening at the airport. They're very proud of the airport, and we continue to remember that all of us who work for NAD, all 280 of us who are all Bahamian, we live here too, and so we have to be proud of this airport.
And this is transfer of knowledge to the nth degree.
Absolutely.
And that's how it should be.
It's a good example of how you can avail yourself of foreign expertise, transfer that knowledge to Bahamians. Because when I joined the airport in 2010, I didn't know anything about running an airport. People think, okay, well, what's the big deal?
But you're not a ninny.
No, I'm not a ninny, but I was willing to learn.
Right.
But the point I'm making though, Ed, is that it's a particular science. It's not rocket science, but you have to learn what it takes to run an airport and run an airport safely and efficiently. It's a lot of stuff to do, and a lot of stakeholders, a lot of stuff we don't have responsibility for or any authority over. So we have to bring everybody to the table to make sure they're doing their part.
But that's what you do well. You see, because there are so many stakeholders. For instance, because I'm an emailer, and I had the luck, it's probably Vernice's nightmare, but it was my privilege that I was on the board. Okay? I did this, my name on that building, I can't let them go any old way.
On that corner store.
Yeah. So for instance, I would call Vernice. I say, Vernice, when they can get a do not declare line, you got it now. Nothing to declare. Now we just have to get Bahamians trained to realize it's not 14 bags.
You can't come to 14. They only spend $500.
You see? Okay. And probably all the bags new. They probably buy the bags over there. But things like like for instance, America. The only thing, but I know it's because it's unique to the Bahamian because we travel so often. But that walk from the last gate it's a lengthy walk, but it's not longer than say Miami Airport or whatever.
It's just to me, it's the same length as when I'm away.
Yeah, you got to walk to the train.
You see things, so you don't really feel it. That's what it is, because you're seeing all the stores and the eateries and stuff, so you don't feel it. But the length is the same.
We have that special, and this is a word I learned, and it's not contributed to NMO, interstitial.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
It's an interstitial corridor.
Right, because the arrivals are separated from the departures.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? You don't get that thing because that's a security issue.
Yeah,
okay?
That's true.
And it actually makes it more. It's a better flow. It's a better flow. You don't have to go around ducking people coming at you. Right. But no, I'm very.
One other thing we're doing though, that I will share, is by next summer, maybe a little later, maybe the fall, we're going to be adding a couple more jet bridges.
Nice.
That requires some construction because it's not like you can just add it to the end of the building, right? We have to build what we call a fixed link. Which requires construction and all of that, and then attach the two jet bridges to that. So that will add to our capacity on the S side as well, in addition to all the apron works we're doing. So after runway 09 and taxiway India, we'll do an extension of taxiway Kilo. We're going to resurface all of the aprons.
She even has that airport talk now.
Yeah. Let me tell you, aviation has its own language.
Do you say Roger a lot?
I'm still learning. I don't say Roger a lot, but aviation has its own language. It's so interesting,
One of the things we haven't covered, I wanted to slip this in, Bernice, is we seem to have, and I think it's important for people to hear it, particular times of the year, some major issues. It always seems to be the same time, whether it's Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, whether things ain't flowing as it should flow.
Well,
as my man would say, what's up with that?
We proved this Easter that we believe we know how to solve that problem, right? This Easter was the busiest 5-day period we have ever had. We had 75,000 people go through that airport, right?
Add one more ever. You got ever.
How many did I use? Was it a lot?
I stump her, man. She is a stuff ever.
I didn't even realize I used that one.
Yeah, but no, the fact is ever.
But what I'm saying is, when I said that we had implemented some new standard operating procedures, which required everybody to staff up and do some things that they'd not done before, it worked.
Yeah.
We proved that we can handle that additional capacity if everybody steps
up. Yeah. As well.
So, Airport Authority opened every checkpoint they could. I mean, we had 4 or 5 checkpoints go in, fully staffed. So I had my own staff in the check-in hall to prepare people for going through security so they know what to divest, and they started to prepare for that. And you could calm them down because people see a long line and they think, I'm never going to get through this. But really, they were through in 15 or 20 minutes, right? And then on the arrival side, Bahamas Immigration, oh my God, they were fully staffed up, and they have their own procedures where, they try to process everybody within 2 minutes. If somebody's going to take longer than 2 minutes, they call a supervisor over. They were treating people with little kids and older adults, pulling them off the line and fast tracking them. It was beautiful. Right. Absolutely beautiful.
So it was the first time. See that, it's less hassle for them, right?
Absolutely. It worked.
Well, Bernice, let me just say something to you. We are, I think as citizens, very proud of our airport.
We are.
You see, it's good that you could say that kind of stuff, right? That you can say, because before, I don't know what you're going to say.
I was a little ashamed.
I was a lot ashamed.
You was a little ashamed? You're lying again, Smith.
I was a little ashamed.
Get rid of that button, okay? That button causing you to lie. Everyone was ashamed, okay?
I was so ashamed.
Everyone.
We had the worst airport in the region, and we now have the best airport in the region, and it's a privilege to show up every day and to know that the team that we built there, everybody's really proud of it and proud to do their part. And I mean, the cleaning staff, they are the proudest.
They are.
Tell them I said. Listen, they are the proudest, and they take so much pride in keeping those bathrooms clean.
No Dettol.
No
more.
And the Clorox, right?
See, before with the forts.
Well, we always camouflage stuff with Dettol.
See, with the forts,
Oh.
I could explain to my friends that's your pirate pee. I can explain that. I could say that's preserved pee. But when we came into the airport, I didn't know what to be. What's the story with the pig?
Right.
I said, "We're just nasty."
It is a sore surprise, though.
Do you realize what it is to come to a country and the first thing you're greeted with is pee? It's a serious thing, man.
It wasn't nice.
So, the first thing that Nad did was he fixed the bathroom. I get everyone off their back right off the top. Listen, no, as I was saying, we're very proud of the airport. It is a place that we now know we can go to and not have to deal with, things breaking down and things not flowing through. And listen, I came in yesterday, maybe, all I know is within minutes my luggage was there. All of it was there. So it's just, the customs people are there to help you. And so everyone is buying in. That's what you got to get, right?
Nassau Flight Services has dedicated persons on the ramp now to make sure that the bags are offloaded to the assigned belt. Right. So they're doing a much better job.
You know how I go with that one.
I know. I remember the email said, you're not the only one who used to email me.
But we prioritize it not.
Minister Diageo used to email me too. What's going on here? It said Carousel 1 and it showed up on Carousel 3. And by the way, we're going to be adding another inbound baggage carousel also.
Right. By the way, that was also one of the number one complaints. Remember, you used to keep logs of how many luggage didn't get on the belt. Just a simple thing like that,
So all of those things are being addressed, and we're very happy.
We have to go, but Bernice, I want you to make us a promise. Promise us that as these developments, obviously it's not for every little thing, but as these developments happen, as you grow, that you'll come back and visit us and give us a scoop.
I'd be happy to do that.
And teach us some new words.
She's such a fun guest, right? Easy roll with the punches.
But nice to know how we go.
Yeah, man, no problem.
I'm very excited for the Bahamas in terms of things like, you have the airport, you have the new port coming in.
Yeah.
Vernice and I work Vernice is the co-chair of the Downtown Nassau Partnership, and some good stuff is going to be coming.
Absolutely.
In fact, I don't know, I saw today the people doing the survey for the U.S. Embassy.
Oh.
Oh. So, things going down.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's all good.
It's all good. We shall see you next week, folks, on Monday. And thanks, Bernice, for coming by.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Thanks, Jen.